One day we had everything. The next day, we had nothing. A phrase often heard in the 1930s America. In the 1920s, America was the apple of the world's eye. The streets echoed with jazz music, cinemas sparkled with lights, and cars were sold on every corner. Everyone had one thing on their mind: the American dream. Wealth, prosperity, and limitless opportunities. But there was one thing no one realized: this dream would very quickly turn into a nightmare. It all began with the silence of a stock exchange floor, and that silence would soon quiet an entire continent. The 1920s were America's Roaring Twenties. The war had ended, the country was rebuilding, and people felt wealthy for the first time in years. The stock market was booming, factories ran non-stop. Everyone was investing, but no one really knew what they were investing in. People were selling their homes to buy stocks. Young workers were investing their salaries in Wall Street. The slogan was simple: prices never fall. But that slogan was one of the biggest lies in history. In October 1929, the New York Stock Exchange experienced the darkest week in history. Stock prices hit rock bottom in just a few days. Investors lost their money, families lost their homes, factories lost their workers, and the world realized for the first time just how fragile the foundations of the economy really were. That morning, everything seemed normal on Wall Street. But within a few hours, 13 million shares changed hands, an unprecedented number at the time. Panic erupted. People shouted, "Sell!" Phones were unreachable, and bankers held their heads in their hands. The next day, the New York Times had a single headline: "Stock market crashes." But that was just the beginning. On October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday, the market completely collapsed. In 1 week, $40 billion in wealth vanished. Adjusted for today's money, that would be trillions. And overnight, millions of Americans were forced to wake up from their dream. When the stock market crashed, investors rushed to the banks. But the banks had already invested their money in stocks. Thousands of banks failed within months. People woke up to find no money in their accounts. Some sold their watches, cars, even wedding rings to recover losses. A father stood on the street holding a cardboard sign that read, "Everything for $1." The photo of him remains a symbol of the Great Depression to this day. The 1930s in America. In the world's wealthiest country, people lined up for bread. In New York, Chicago, Detroit, thousands queued every morning at soup kitchens. Nuns distributing bread, children fighting for meals. Human dignity bowed, but many lost their jobs. By 1933, 1 in every 4 Americans was unemployed, a total of 13 million people. Families who lost their homes lived in makeshift shanty towns called Hoovervilles. These shanty towns were named after President Herbert Hoover, whom people blamed. As cities collapsed, another disaster emerged in rural areas. In the 1930s, the Dust Bowl destroyed America's agricultural belt. Years of drought, poor farming practices, and erosion. The soil became infertile. Farmers could not harvest crops, could not pay debts. Thousands of families sold their tractors, livestock, even homes, and migrated west to California. But there, hope was scarce. A sign on the California border read, "No room for job-seeking migrants." John Steinbeck vividly captured this tragedy in his novel, The Grapes of Wrath. That story was not just a novel, it was the spirit of an era. By 1932, the American people had lost all hope. But that year, hope appeared on the stage. Franklin D. Roosevelt. He took the podium, leaned on his cane, and said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Roosevelt announced a plan that would change history: the New Deal. This program restructured banks, established an insurance system, and provided aid to the unemployed. Dams, roads, and bridges were built. People began earning money again, and confidence in the economy was restored. But most importantly, Roosevelt healed the spirit of the people. For the first time, a president cared not only about money, but about hope. By the end of the 1930s, the world was beginning to take on a new shape. Fascism was on the rise in Europe, Hitler was coming to power. America revived its economy through war preparations. Factories began producing weapons, planes, and ammunition. Unemployment dropped to zero, production increased. And eventually, World War II fully restored America to its former state. But the cost was high. Millions of people's dreams, hopes, and lives were lost during those dark years. The Great Depression was not just an economic collapse. It was a warning. Humanity painfully learned that money alone cannot solve everything. The importance of government, society, and solidarity became clear. And most importantly, greater than a country's wealth is measured not by its treasury, but by the hope of its people. The Great Depression did not destroy the American dream. On the contrary, it made it more valuable. Now the dream was not luxury cars, gold watches, or stock profits. The new American dream was to grow together, to start over, and to persevere even after falling. And perhaps that is why everyone who lived through those years said the same thing. We lost everything during that time, but we found each other. Do you think humanity truly learned a lesson? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.